Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That given year right now is 1996. 1996. Somebody was president. Somebody else was president. The weed was flowing. Wine was getting smoked. And we were all happy eating Abba Zabbas or Charleston Chews, depending on which side of the tracks you grew up on. My name is Ryan, and I will be a different flavor for you tonight. Normally, I am on every show, but this is Mike's season. Mike is the host of 1996, and he is literally in Azerbaijan. That sounds made up. He is there, and so I'm going to take over.
We can prove that he's there.
I don't know why you're coming at me. Like,
yeah.
If you need like pictures of him holding today's newspaper,
we
would
have said like. If we made it up, we would have said like France, like one of the obvious ones.
South Dakota.
Italy, because he's Italian.
I think he's Sicilian, and I don't know if you're allowed to mix that up.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
You're really not.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to. Sorry to jump in, but you're not.
Nate, shut the fuck up. Are you Sicilian?
Yeah, I am too.
I can't believe how many Sicilians we have associated with the show. Like half of the cast and extended crew is Sicilian.
I forgot that Nate was Sicilian, and I just want to apologize deeply for telling you to shut the fuck up. That was a joke, and I did not mean it. I am sorry. And
I mean, it would be too bad if something happened to your podcast, is all I'm saying.
This is 1996, and tonight's film is Danny Boyle's Trainspotting, parentheses, 1996. Everybody knows the year, right?
I think so. I hope so at this point.
Okay. Tonight, as always, this is a film conversation, yet also a game show. My two panelists, who I have not announced yet, nobody knows who they are. It's a total surprise, will be competing for the role of my best friend, for which that means every friendship bracelet they make that week will be going directly to me, regardless of what the colors are. Every color, mine. Do not want muffins. I do not want muffins. It is a game show where I will be awarding them points, and we will have a winner. A point sounds like this.
Greg.
Or
Nate.
Okay, Greg's a little bit like,
Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Yeah.
Nate's like,
Nate.
This is Nate.
Nate.
Yeah. So if you hear that, that's because I thought that they were great. If you hear Nate say the word Nate, that means he thought he was great, but I disagreed. Gentlemen, I guess in our first corner, it's Greg.
Hey, Ryan, now, do you want even the friendship bracelets that I make with my feet? You even want those?
No, because those are a little bit stinkier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you do that, though?
Make friendship bracelets with my feet? Oh, I have very dexterous feet. Yeah.
How about this? I don't want them, but I want the pictures of you making them of your feet to go to Nate for his new website. And in our other corner, our returning champ, I assume that the last time you were on the show you won. It's Nate.
Hey, it's me, and all I have to say is come with me if you want to choose life.
Is that a T2 reference?
It sure is.
Best of both worlds.
Did you hear Nate say it's me instead of it's a me?
It's a me.
He's
Nate.
really trying here.
It took decades of voice training to not drop the A in.
I don't know if this is the best movie of 96, but it might be the most 90s movie of 96. Nate, I'm going to start with you. Trainspotting, before we dive in and get super deep, before we hit record and then fall through a hole in the floor with red carpet all around us, where are you at with Trainspotting?
I was really impressed with how much this movie held up in my esteem. Like I remember seeing it probably around, I would guess, closer to 98, 99, something like that. Because I was still but a young lad of 15 when it came out, and the drug-related content wouldn't have flown with my parents, I don't think. But
because they were more like, we don't care if you do it, just do it at home.
Right,
Not watch it at the movie theater.
Exactly. If you want to crawl anywhere, crawl on the ceiling in your bedroom like a good boy. It's I think what's great is it's really nostalgic for an era in my life when the whole concept of Great Britain as the cool place where people dressed in tight clothing and t-shirts and Adidas, and they were saying stuff in just in an accent that made them sound more interesting, and then you just had a lot of cool music associated. It it just vibes nicely for me. I love this movie.
Greg?
Yeah, 96 was one of the first times I was really into films as a kid. And I think I was progressing out of the I like movies with Jean-Claude Van Damme in them into like, I think I actually might enjoy this as an art form. And I can't remember why I saw this movie, except I remember the previews being very, very stylish, like pulling together all the highly stylized parts of the movie. Like when Ewan McGregor drops down and says, "What's on the menu tonight?" Like it's such a brief moment in the movie, but it loomed very large in the trailer.
And it's close to like an Iron Man landing. So
yeah,
it felt like our superhero needs.
And Nate is right. It comes from a time where there was like a lot of these polished, highly stylized Guy Ritchie style, like very energetic movies from England or from the United Kingdom. And I guess I don't know if we talked about this with Morven Collar, but I think Scotland at the time is investing heavily in their own film segment, and so like all these great movies are coming out of Scotland. And so I was very excited as a kid to see it, put it on, and got to the part where the baby's crawling on the ceiling. I mean, I remember every shot of this movie up until that. And already when he's going through withdrawal, it's like, it's getting to like horror movie kind of like feeling, right? And then he begins actively hallucinating. And I was like, okay, I'm not loving where this is going. And then the baby appears on the ceiling. And honestly, I think it's when the baby turned its head around.
Yeah.
I stopped watching the movie. And I never saw it all the way through until this week. I finally finished it. And
so the heist, you had no idea there was a heist?
No, I had this memory of this movie that was so much different, actually, than what I saw this time, because I thought also that baby thing was basically near the end of the movie. It's near the middle of the movie, because the movie has this complete tonal shift to a heist-like third act.
When the vampires come out.
And so I was very surprised by all this. Watching it for this viewing, for this show, still very depressing, still very shocking in certain elements, but also very enjoyable, very interesting, and the kind of movie that if I saw on my own, I would be excited by, but the prospect of talking about it and really getting into it, this is a movie to be discussed. There's so much there to really get into.
You want to do it?
No.
Okay, that's our show for this week.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry for being a stick in the mud.
But Greg said no.
Yeah, thanks, Nace.
Jimmy Olsen over here never gets to talk about what he wants. I so distinctly remember this movie coming out because it was just such an exciting time to be a movie fan. It just like there was this middle ground between whatever the Transformers was of this time and the super, super underground movies that I would have never heard of and probably still haven't.
Transformers at the time, I think we're talking like Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Stuff like that. Yeah. The stuff that I was still there opening weekend for and loving the shit out of. But this was so exciting, and it felt like we officially, I don't know how much we're going to talk about QT tonight. I don't see a ton of Pulp Fiction here as much as people might want to say. I see a lot of like Pulp Fiction and Trainspotting are in conversation of creating our new 70s. I didn't know that at the time, but it felt like now interesting people had the keys to the car. I don't know how long it would last, but this has been, I had posters on the wall. I had all the CDs. This movie was huge for me. Now I'd like, some of it is hard to watch. Some of it's a little cringy. Some of it's a little questionable. Not just questionable, like, should we discuss why this was in there? But I still think this holds up, and I love the fact that the way that this season went down, not only do we get to share this experience together, but you and I had watched for the first time La Haine a couple weeks ago for the show. And not to pit those two movies together because they're both very different, but also the point of the show later in the season is to pit them together. But I think that these two are like, these two movies have very similar plots, but show you the range of independent filmmaking at the time of like all of the stuff that you could do.
Yeah. And also it's interesting seeing it the same season as Breaking the Waves, another Scottish film. And then as I mentioned earlier, Morven Collar, which we just watched a couple seasons ago, because it really does like these Scottish films really are very interesting and very like sort of like a diverse take on what we were getting from American cinema in 96.
All right. I want to dive in so bad. I want to dive into the filthiest toilet in Scotland that I consider the two of you to be.
Thank you.
When we come back, Trainspotting. In 1993, 90s film trio Andrew McDonald, Danny Boyle, and John Hodge attempted to bring Irvine Welsh's novel Trainspotting to the big screen. A borderline unadaptable novel, the trio fought over which chapters were even possible to film until they came up with a beginning, middle, and end. And Danny Boyle set off to shoot the most energetic film you've ever seen. The movie tells the story of a group of guys hanging out in Scotland in the late 80s, hanging out and doing cool things, except for heroin, which isn't cool at all. Hear me?
Not cool.
Not cool.
It's not cool. Don't do it.
The film made stars, if not household names, of the actors and filmmakers, and led to 2 best-selling soundtracks, a sequel, a breakfast cereal, a Saturday morning cartoon, 2 colorform sets, and dozens of viewfinder discs. A prequel, where people spot a train coming towards the screen and run out of the theater screaming, is considered the first movie to ever make people look stupid. Trainspotting is Danny Boyle's second movie, his breakthrough to the mainstream after 1994's Shallow Grave, and considered by many to still be his best. How do the Boylistic flourishes hold up today? Does everything contribute to the creation of a style that would lead to Best Picture awards, or does it feel grossly, and I mean that word in more than one way, 90s?
I would say it does. There are ways in which it feels very 90s, but I think it manages to have a more timeless feel than that. I think it's a thing unto itself, really. I mean, his like high energetic, different sort of like types of scenes. That to me is what feels like they I haven't read the book, but part of what I think they captured from the book is obviously the book is kind of like almost a multimedia, multimodal presentation. It sounds like it's probably some essays, mixed in with some diaries, mixed in with some like first person accounts. But that like every scene feeling a little bit different, that does like I think that he captured that and made it really work for the movie. Like you never get tired of the style of the movie because it shifts a little bit scene to scene.
And yeah, I mean there isn't that scene, and there never is when we're talking about movies on this level, like the Sweet 16 of any given year. But there is never that scene of just like, oh, here's 3 guys moving plot forward.
Yeah.
It's just a series of moment after moment after moment.
Yeah, at most it verges on 90s-ness because it's dealing in excess, but it's dealing in excess as like the climbing action to get to the change that our characters have to have, right? And I mean, and you have incredible excess in like Begbie and things like that, but I think it's all deftly handled because it really is about making points, about delivering real sort of resolution to characters rather than just being like, oh, hey, this is just big for big's sake, which was the 90s problem.
And following them along to their eventual path. Like, nobody makes, like, a crazy plot turn just because.
I do have to say, though, in the way that I was surprised by how the third act of this movie turned out because I hadn't watched it before, it does feel like halfway through the movie you are going to get this very somber, like, look, what hath drugs wrought type situation. And then the movie is giving you that. And right when you think it must be about ready to wrap things up, it's like, let's get a little heisty here. Like, can we have a little fun with it?
The movie definitely pulls a toxoplasmosis golden parachute out when it needs to change tone.
Yeah, all the things to highlight the movie's change in tone, to have Tommy die, and then that's when everything gets really lighthearted and weird. What a choice.
Well, I mean, it is crazy because as many times as I've seen this movie, or before you see it, if you've just seen the trailer, you totally forget about Tommy. So we needed to just get him out of the way, get him to his mattress, and then now we can have fun. This is a part that is hard for me because it is so of its time. And is it of its time because it helped create its time to have that third act heist, or because it felt like it had to be a part of its time and included it because every other movie was doing it? Like, did it create help create the 90s trope, or did it fall prey to the 90s trope?
I think it utilizes the 90s trope, but it feels like an unusual choice, but I think it manages to sort of like sit on it. And I think what it really brings out is the fact that our main character, Renton, is like essentially a sociopath. Like, by the time you see him resolve all of this, you're like, okay, this is not a guy that's like in a tough situation, or, you know, he says to the judge at one point, like, when he's like released into treatment, he's like, I hope I can find a way through this terrible affliction. And the judge like twitches, because you can tell that the judge is like, wait, no, I want you to take responsibility for your actions. And he's like, you're never going to get me to take responsibility for my actions. I am completely innocent of everything that's ever happened to me.
With a lawyer just saying, God damn it, I'm so bad at this job.
Yeah, no, totally, because the third act is an inversion of what we're being set up to feel for the entire first 2/3, right? You're supposed to like Rent Boy and see him as the most reasonable of his friends, even though he's kind of the one who's like skirting the edges of things, and we don't really get interiority on a lot of other people. So we're getting a very just kind of a dishonest narrative in general. And so flipping it at that point is the best way to be like, okay, well, look, we thought that this was this guy's rise and downfall and recovery, but no, it's actually the fact that he's like irredeemable.
Yeah.
And the irony of this is he's going to start the movie on a list that's like post-ironic Fight Club level, everything the 90s and modern living sucks, and he's going to end on that, but saying it in a completely disingenuous way after he has ruined everybody that he cared about except for one of them.
And the movie's going to bring forward like all these different people that are potentially to blame for what has happened to him and to what we've seen him do, including his parents. But then you see, like, over the course of the movie, his parents are doing everything that they possibly can. Mm-hmm. It's just him. It's just he is the weak link.
I want to get to the group as a group of friends and characters later on, but right now I really want to be specific about Danny Boyle's intentions and execution. Are there parts, watching this now in 2024, where regardless of how many times you've seen the movie, where you were like, that was still breathtaking? And do those moments outweigh the parts where you're like, all right, guy, cool, shit flying across a breakfast?
Can I tell you one really simple one that's probably dumber than hell? Them actually getting on the train, and then the train pulls away, and what is like fills the negative space of where the train had been is just like the Scottish Highlands. And you're just like, oh my God, like this has not been at any other part of the movie. It's all been industrial Edinburgh, but like, if not that, then like just the kind of gray slate Edinburgh, which is very beautiful, but I feel like not filmed for beauty in the movie. And then all of a sudden having like the industrial image of the train give way to like the beauty of the countryside. I was like, and then to have them like soundly reject that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that Tommy is definitely the lesser of the five, or if we include Kelly MacDonald, the six characters. Kelly MacDonald has way less screen time than Tommy and still makes a bigger impact. But Tommy almost forcing himself to go out there and like, shouldn't we enjoy this greenery? Like, shouldn't we be the people that want to do this? And they won't even leave the dock. Or like, if they do, like, it's just to have a seat and pound liquor.
I mean, Tommy's the normie, right? He is choosing life by proxy in the definition of the film. He's making sex tapes. He's having a good time. He appears to not be doing heroin until later. Yeah, he's taking care of himself. He's like engaged in sports. He has hobbies. He appears to have interests, and he wants to take the boys hiking, and they hate it. And I love what Rent Boy ends up saying about the being, colonized by the worst available colonizers available. But yeah, he's stuck. He's in the wrong movie. And that's sort of what's interesting about how he gets disposed of, right? Is it's like, you weren't supposed to be here, and so, of course, you're the casualty.
Without, maybe not focusing on specifics, but let's say pre-heist, so the first 60 minutes of the movie, was there a point where this young Boyle kid, who we had no idea would go on to make schmaltzy stuff like Slumdog Millionaire win Oscars, where you did get worn down, where it was like, chill your fucking energy back?
I feel like the grossness. I mean,
so it wasn't the camera movement, it wasn't the editing, it wasn't the MTV style that we call it?
No, not for me anyway. Maybe because I'm part of the MTV generation. It has the frantic energy of a music video, and I was like quite literally raised on music videos, so maybe but like the in-your-face grossness of it is a lot. Like the dirtiest toilet in Scotland. That's for me. That's very, very tough to get through. And then
Because of the poop.
And then the Spud throwing his shit all over his girlfriend's family, even though it doesn't look real at all. And then the baby crawling on the ceiling is what I remember, but the fuck me up forever thing is just the dead baby.
The dead baby in the crib is maybe the most like stop everything shot because we linger there. And we cut away, and then we go back. And it's very clearly like, oh, this baby's like bruised up and shit too. Like we have before that. I think what's interesting about that is Boyle has done a great job of making it seem like this is a fun, everybody's getting high, but nothing's going wrong thing because that baby is in almost every shot, just kind of crawling around in the periphery
it's basically
and looking
like
perfectly healthy.
The Boogie Nights parts when it's still the 70s.
Yeah. And you see that baby so many times that when the turn comes and it's like, hey, look, the baby's dead and the baby's clearly like malnourished and has taken a bunch of physical abuse in addition to the fact that we don't know what happened, right?
No.
You can go with like crib death or something as an assumption, but like you don't know what happened. You don't know if the baby fell down the stairs and somebody just put it back. You have no clue, and it's just
it could have died of
moment.
neglect and starvation. It could have died of like I don't know if heroin gets into breast milk. Like,
yeah,
it's a weird moment in the movie because there's a lot about this movie that feels like an adaptation of a book, and part of it is there is sometimes a lack of connective tissue in a way that I think is fine. You can't say every moment of the story, but there are these gaps in the story, right? And I'll tell you, when this scene arises, it's after they've gone for that hike, and it's like they have decided to take up heroin again. The viewer doesn't see that decision, see that conversation, or really understand exactly what it means or why they're making that choice. They get so bored that they decided even though they've kicked drugs as a group, they're all going to go back. And then it's like warps us right into the death of the baby. And so it's like we miss so much of what that descent is. But clearly
it feels like a chapter break. It feels like the last sentence of one chapter is we're going to get back on heroin and then jump forward. Oh, the baby's dead.
Yeah. And it's like he says it takes us 12 hours. I think what he means, and this is addicts will say this, you can give up a drug, and then when you go back to it, it's not like going back to it for the first time ever. You start using again, and you return to the place you were when you quit.
Right.
So I think the idea is they become heavily bad addicts again, and then, we don't see what happens to this poor child, but clearly, like, enough time passes where something dramatically bad happens.
I mean, the linger on it and is iconic, and the baby climbing on the ceiling is truly iconic, and the baby's face, though, like, it's not American Sniper bad where Bradley Cooper holds that baby at the end and it's clearly the fakest baby of all time. But it doesn't look like a real baby. It is more horrifying. It's more like a real baby, but like Clive Barker had some input on
it's
it.
Exorcist level baby. Absolutely.
It's Brazil baby mask baby. That's really what it is.
Yes. That's such a good pull.
With the pitch black eyes, just awful. Okay, so the thing about the toilet scene and the thing about the falling down in the hole scene that I mentioned before, are these effective as storytelling methods, or are these just to jack audiences up and be like, fucking movies?
I think the falling into the floor scene, yes. The toilet scene, much less so. Like, the toilet scene feels like the most sort of excessive. We all know it. It feels like it's recalling the Nevermind album cover. It feels like it's doing a bunch of stuff, right? It's doing a lot of 90s things at the same time. It's 2 years after Jeff Daniels just sat on a toilet having to shit and had the best time of his life, and Ewan McGregor does the same thing, slightly more toned down. The falling into the floor thing really worked for me more because it was like, okay, this is the sinking thing, but it's also like, oh, this is a coffin. Like, that's what this is doing. This is giving us coffin now. And so you're experiencing it. I mean, it's set to Perfect Day by Lou Reed, which now would be very on the nose, but then is like maybe the first time anybody thought to do that in a contemporary film like this.
Probably not, but let's just say that right now.
It's on the nose no matter what. But it works because it gives you a very clear sort of audience experience of the idea that, like, you're so out of it that, like, the world is moving you for you. And the only reason he survives is because a number of people sort of do a kind thing that they didn't have to do, right?
Right.
Like, the fact that the cab driver even drops him off and takes him to the door of the emergency ward, it's just great because he's effectively dead.
Also, in a movie about heroin, we see the effects of doing heroin, and we hear them talk about how much they love heroin, but we don't see many visualizations of the experience of doing heroin. And so we're not given a lot to understand. Watching him fall through the floor and then stay there throughout the next couple of scenes at least makes us grapple with the profound change that heroin has on him.
I've never done heroin, but I will say in my limited drug experience, falling through the floor, but then not being able to get out of the floor. That was cool. I fell. Could I come back? No, I'm just going to stay here for fucking hours. Awesome.
Gravity has reversed, and now I'm pinned to the floor.
I definitely agree with you guys, though, that there's something about the falling through the floor as sort of on the nose with the camera and the music as it might be, and the whole I'm recovery in my childhood bed, and the room is moving back almost like a horizontal version of the Haunted Mansion elevator. Those
Jamiroquai room.
A Jamiroquai room, if you will. We have shopping spree coming up, so
the room of Jamiroquirement.
Those are scenes that sort of say I'm trying to do a thing, and I have studied Scorsese, I've studied Kubrick.
Studied being rented.
He's
Rent Boyd.
The climbing down the toilet and the shit all over the kitchen. In the same movie, it does make sense, but those also have the feelings of me and my two friends were okay, before we even start the script, what needs to be in the movie?
Yeah, dude.
What do we just have to do, even though we don't know the plot yet?
I do have to say, I think part of what the movie is trying to impress upon us, and it does manage to do so, is that having a heroin addiction means you have a different relationship with shit than most people have. It almost it's like being a parent or something. There's gonna be dookies,
Greg,
and there's gonna be blowouts, and there's gonna be big problems. So you better carry a bag with extra clothes in it, because it might happen when you're out in public.
There will be Duke.
There will be Duke.
That baby in the crib and on the ceiling might be the most iconic baby of 1996. But we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about actual factual babies that came out in 1996.
Mount Rushmore.
You know what that means? It is Rushmore time, and we are doing Rushmore babies. Let me explain, especially based on what we've just been talking about. It is much different. Who are the most iconic people that were babies born in 1996? That's what you guys are fighting for. We're going to put 4 giant baby heads on this mountain. One of them I have specially picked out for me, but so you'll get bonus points. But if we're being honest, there was a lot of people born in 1996, so I would just play to me. I mean, I have the points here, so that's what I would do. But Nate, we are going to start with you as the guestier guest. Who belongs on this mountain?
I've got we've got a lot of greats. Actually, it came out in 96. It's amazing. But this one in particular has been, she's portrayed a wrestler. She's portrayed a communist.
God damn it.
She's also portrayed let's say an Icelandic cult queen. It's Florence Pugh.
Okay, I don't know if you talk through all 3 of your bonus points there, but right off the bat, pew pew pew.
Pew pew pew.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to put Florence Pugh on this. Come on.
So according to all 3 of us then, just the queen of 1996.
Yeah, I would say a very strong choice. I mean, friend of the pod. She doesn't know we exist, but obviously a close friend of ours. Very important to so many of the movies that we've done. And it's always nice to have a movie figure, right? So
I agree. On this show, for sure. Greg, do you want to give up, or do you got something?
I'm very disappointed. I thought maybe I could. I don't know why. I thought not everybody values Florence Pugh as much as we do, and maybe Nate wouldn't know how much we do. So, can there be anybody that can even hold a candle to Florence Pugh? Is there anyone that could be a challenger? Well, I think we'd have to go to the movie challengers. Little did we know, in 1996, things had gotten a little bit more meechy, because Zendaya was born in 1996. I literally don't know where we are as a people right now if we don't have Zendaya.
Okay. I mean, that feels like a lot of pressure on me to put her on the mountain.
Well, right. Don't you care about American civilization, Ryan?
Not really anymore.
No, yeah. Maybe a couple weeks ago. No longer I feel like I have a vested interest in this place.
So you
Men without a country.
You did say day and die.
No, it should be Day, though, right?
Should be Day.
Zendaya.
I think it's Zendaya, yeah.
Yeah, Zendaya. And it's Michi.
Oh, I always get that wrong, too.
Of course, LeBron James was Gwangi.
Greatest career accomplishment for him?
Probably.
Yeah. Does anybody remember the name of that movie?
Smallfoot?
Wow. Do you remember the name of the guy who sang that song?
No, but man, that was a great couple days on the internet. I felt like
he's our generation's guy who had that Gremlins 3 song.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember either one of their names. So they're not going on the mountain. Zendaya.
Nick Let's Go is the
good job.
Gremlins 3 guy.
Nick, you're up next. What do we got? Nate. God damn it.
Hey, it's all good.
Don't say it's okay that he called you Nick. Don't do that.
No, it's a bit. We're doing a bit. This is what we do now.
It's like 2 months with this bit now. I don't know anybody named Nick. It's not funny.
I gotta go with. I mean, this may be an all ladies mountain.
Yeah.
Because another amazing actress. She's been a witch. She's never eaten a burger in her life, but she sure as hell orders one to get out of being murdered. It's Anya Taylor-Joy.
Of course.
And that last part is a reference to the kitchen.
The menu.
To the menu.
The menu, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Furiosa bombed, so I don't know how high her stock is right now.
What about the Queen's Gambit, Ryan?
There is the Queen's Gambit, of course. Yeah, great, good one. I'm gonna put another one on soon. Greg, what do you got?
1996. People loved going on the computer, and when you would be on the computer and you would go to one of these websites, sometimes they would have GIFs and they would show you a little dancing. In 1996, America was introduced via the computer to the dancing baby GIF, later popularized in the 1998 season of Ally McBeal, but we could not get enough of sending each other this baby dancing. It looked three-dimensional. It felt like, oh my God, this is the future. I believe it's made of 6 different pixels, and it dances.
So this is a GIF that is not from Schitt's Creek?
This is not a Schitt's Creek GIF.
I don't understand. Damn, man, that's a hell of a baby. And what was in response to? Like, you would email or you would fax me party tonight? And then I would fax you the baby?
Check it out. We were so excited to see little moving animation on the computer. The internet was like a text-only experience, and then you would get still pictures. And folks, these still pictures would load in like a couple of lines at a time. You would sit there and watch the picture fill the screen. You'd be like, oh, yeah, any moment now I'm going to get to the clavicle. But suddenly, a three-dimensional dancing baby? What the heck? What is this? The future?
It feels like what you're saying is that it was so hard to jerk off to still pics until you had this dancing baby. Is that what you're saying?
I think I'm saying two different things that are not related to one another.
Thank God they're not related. That would come later in the 2010s. Nate, what do we got?
All right, let's look. We gotta complete the Zendaya set by bringing in the most current Spider-Man, because a little British boy who sure can gee golly like Peter Parker, Tom Holland, born in '96.
A British guy named Tom Holland. Like, what is my name? Ryan Brazil? Like, get the country and last name right, bro.
Of that last Spider-Man movie, a lot of people are saying that's Mr. Holland's opus.
I don't know. Not you, but
I don't know if you heard that.
A
lot of people.
Great. Sorry.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry to you, the listeners at home.
All good options, but Tom Holland did play Spider-Man. Pop Filter Hall of Famer Spider-Man, so he's going right on the mountain. Nate gets another one.
Nate.
Greg, your turn.
Okay. I don't know if this one's going to matter as much for you as it does for me, Ryan, but
hate it already.
Haley Steinfeld has been in a lot of wonderful movies and a lot of cool things in her own right, but as a voice actress, she has had such a prolific career. She was in the Spider-Man movies. She's in that show Arcane on Netflix that's so good. Honestly, anything you're listening to, there's a good chance Haley Steinfeld is one of the voices. And we're lucky to have her. And she was also in the movie Bumblebee, which is the only good live-action Transformers movie.
And she likes to say, "What's the deal with me? I'm Haley Steinfeld."
All right. Excellent pick. I am going to... I think I have it ready. So we'll go to speed round for your guys' bullshit picks. Nate, what do you got?
Okay. Someone near and dear to your heart. He's a pitcher for your beloved Angels. Griffin Canning, born in 1996.
Is that the one that died?
They're of Angels pitchers, it's hard to keep track.
Yeah.
I think he's still alive, but the ceiling's very low, so...
They sign with the Angels, then they become Angels. I'm not even writing that down, Nate. That's awful. Greg?
Ella Purnell, who was in the Fallout
and
show.
Yellow Jackets.
And then she's also a voice in that show, Arcane.
Arcane is always on the outside of our best of the year shows for TV, so I've never seen it. Nate, you have anything else?
How about Lorde?
Oh, Lorde!
The musician Lorde.
Okay. Greg, you have Savior.
I'm just going to go with YouTube stars. This is one of the early years where they're like, who was born in 1996? And you begin thinking on Google Hill, most of the names you will come up with are YouTube stars. And when I say YouTube stars, these are very big names in YouTube. And if I were just to list them and then throw in completely made up names, people our age would have no idea. Some of the biggest stars on the planet, and I swear to God, they could be AI generated.
Bob, Joe, Jimmy Jim has 100 million followers.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Seriously. Lil Dupe? Oh man, Lil Dupe. You're blowing it up. Lil Dupe's How Many Bees Could I Jam in My Mouth video got 8 million views yesterday.
Is Lil Dupe a real person?
Probably.
Okay, so you just want YouTube stars in general.
Yeah.
What's messed up about this year is that these people are 28.
Yeah, I know.
Like, if you're still a YouTube star at this point, you've aged out of the game.
I think you're one of the one of the earliest YouTube stars at this point.
And yet, because you're 28, that makes me old as fuck.
Yeah, dude.
Fuck.
Oh, we're all already dead. Yeah, easily.
All right, gentlemen.
How about you want one more?
Yeah, give me one more.
I'll give you one more. The wrestler Rhea Ripley. She's a big deal in the WWE.
Greg.
There you go. I deserve that.
Absolutely not. Okay, so let me.
Greg.
Nate.
Your 1996 Baby Mountain is Flopew, Tom Holland, Zendaya, and the dancing baby gif.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Also, it's important to note that this is the first Mount Rushmore that has 3 stone heads and 1 dancing head, and it looks 3D. When we come back, more Trainspotting. And we are back to the film at hand. This season has given us lots of occasion to look at dudes duding out with dudes. What kind of friends are these? Do we see a friend group destroyed, or do we see associates realize only that Sweet Lady H is keeping them together?
Yeah, there's several times. I'm not even sure if it's Sweet Lady H that's keeping together. There are several times where they're like, specifically about Francis, we hate Francis.
I mean, this is like, it's the point where, like, if we
Great.
break up with him, he'll kill us. So that's why we still hang out with him.
But that's not what they say, at least. That's an explanation, and I think that there's room for interpretation that way. What they say is, we hate Francis. What are you going to do?
He's a mate.
He's our mate.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and honestly, I'm sure the movie doesn't mean this, but interesting that that's the word. Obviously, that's the word that, like, you use in Scotland to describe your friends, but that's what it's like, that they are like married to each other. And even though they are torturing and immiserating and actively like destroying each other, they are stuck together anyway with some sort of like, this is the way it's always been. We happen to grow up in the same area at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, like, is it bro code or is it fear
Great.
of loneliness? Like,
I think it's because for a movie that is so energetic in its presentation, it's really about inertia in all of its
Yes.
forms, right? These are people who don't see anywhere to go. They don't see any end to their existence in Scotland as being better, and they don't see any reason why they would change or even develop as people. So they're just like stuck in some state. And if the movie flashed back far enough to let us meet them, like Trainspotting babies kind of situation, we would probably understand the moment when all of this clicked into place, that it was like, oh, they're literally never going anywhere.
I mean, their friendships are the same thing as the flop house that they're in. Mm-hmm. They're a wreck. They're like actively making them sick. It's awful, but they keep going back.
Yeah, but they keep going back to this just destroyed, dilapidated place.
But they're
because it's theirs, right?
I know Renton is 26 years old, and I have to assume, maybe not Begbie, but most of them are around that, right? So, like, do you guys think, based on what we've seen, that in their heads it's just like, oh, this is a temporary phase? Or at 26, are they like, nah, this is life forever? They're choosing it.
They are what we call now doom-pilled. Like, they are the absolute, there is no future. Because if everything works out perfectly for them, the future they see resulting from their perfect existence is more bleak to them than having their arm rot off in a hospital, because they would rather have some sort of like rebellious, passionate
punk rock,
than like just turn into their parents, who honestly, that's another big switch between watching this movie as a young prepper now. Like, these parents are young, they're doing their best, they're just trying to like figure out how to do this, and they like, their lives are not bad. They all have really good lives. Like,
they own homes.
Yeah. In Edinburgh.
Everybody's spaces look good. Like all the dining rooms that were shown, all of these other, like, everything seems fine. Like, he has parents that are nice enough to carry him to his bed.
And
they're keeping his room organized, right?
The mattresses have bed springs and they're lifted above the ground. And, like, that's in this movie, that's you won.
At first, it seems like they're doing the thing with the parents that Repo Man did. That the parents are so locked into the television that they're not aware of the existence of their child. And I think that's true in the beginning, but we see the parents' arc. They do that, then they try to like just hit him with love and acceptance, and then finally they lock him in the fucking bedroom and they're like, no, we're going to get you off this junk if nobody else can do it.
And I know you think that we're evil, but we tried 12 other things before this.
Yeah.
So this is all we have.
I think I think the age thing is also just a factor of, when you're in your mid-20s, you have no concept of when all of the things that you're feeling are going to end, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you've basically been from post-puberty to... from post-puberty until you're about, like, 35, you feel pretty much the same all the time, and you kind of bounce back the way that you're used to bouncing back, and everything seems like it's possible. And I think there's something of that in here, too, where it's like... They all think that they're being punk by avoiding a conventional lifestyle.
Right.
And instead what they're doing is really going like, I don't want to decide and I don't have to, because I'll be like this forever until the wall comes, right? And I think that's a lot of it, right? I don't even think it's conscious. I don't think it's thoughtful. I think it's you're fucking blessed with youth and you're too stupid to understand how short it is.
And it's the like, I'm not here for a long time, I'm here for a good time. But it makes me think of, and God forgive me how much I quote this movie, but it makes me think of Fight Club. Marla Singer lived her life every day like she could die at any moment. And the tragedy was she didn't. And that's the thing. These kids are like, we're going to die any second, so who cares? Let's party. And then they persist, most of them anyway. And it's like, then you have to figure out, what's the plan for when you don't die young? What do you do then? Like, and that's the thing they can't face. Like, what happens if we don't die at 27, 28? What happens if we turn into 40-year-olds, 44-year-olds, if you can believe it?
Well, and even when they're sober, they if anything, they regress, right? Like, when Rent Boy and
Spud, Sick
and
Boy,
Johnny
Francis.
Lee Miller.
Sick Boy.
When Johnny Lee Miller when they're like sitting in the park with the BB gun and they're just like shooting the dog to get it to bite the guy. They're acting like 12, 13-year-old boys.
Right.
Yeah, they've regressed totally.
But as long as I don't have to think, as long as I don't even have to have a 5-month plan, much less a 5-year plan, we'll go out and distract us with this because we just happen to not be doing heroin right now.
The other thing about friendship that rocks me watching this movie is it's never explicitly said, but like, does Renton hate Tommy for some reason? Like, it seems like Renton actively tries to destroy and effectively does destroy Tommy, and never admits to himself that he is responsible for it, and never admits to himself that he's trying to do it. He's trying to destroy this beautiful thing.
When we talk about sociopaths or any path, we think like, oh, you killed baby animals until you killed humans. But like the severe lack of thought or empathy of, I'm going to take your secret sex tape, knowing what a backstab that is to what I consider my friend, and then watch your life unravel.
Watching it destroy his life. Watching it right there. He could have snuck it back. He could have said something. He never says anything, and there's no indication that he thinks about it one time.
Well, and to let him get into heroin when he isn't doing it is like...
Well, Tommy says he's a full-grown man, so he can make his own decision.
Well, sure, but the heroin thing is kind of an act of colonization too, right?
Yeah.
Like, Renton is colonizing Tommy. Tommy's the last vestige of like undisturbed country in their friend group,
and he's dragging him down.
I'll plant a flag here. Why not?
And
I know what this means, but go ahead.
It always, like, I just feel like that there's always this thing of like, if Tommy does it, the most normie norm that we know, it normalizes it for me. It's just like, it becomes not this outsider thing that I know I should kick, I know I should stop, but like, I mean, we're all doing it. We're all voting this way, so why shouldn't I as well? You know, like it's just a thing we do. And now Begbie's the outsider instead of Renton being the outsider.
And then how about Renton and Sick Boy? Like, are they friends, frenemies, disappointed lovers? I mean, I don't, on this show, I don't think we lean too much on the, like, are these guys secretly homosexuals and in love with each other?
Or was that the hidden message of the movie?
Yeah. Because I do think, but there's something in there, right? There's some sort of like love, loathe, hate.
What's weird is that every time I rewatch this movie, and, you know, I am getting older by definition every time I rewatch it, I feel less and less that they are a group of friends. And when you start off, like, Renton feels part of an ensemble, and then as you get on, and again, he is the narrator, so like that is important that like he would make himself be the center of the whole thing, but like it feels that like maybe Renton and Sick Boy are the bestest of besties, and then you start thinking that like, oh, Renton knows that he's in charge and uses all of them, but like it's Renton and Sick Boy on that couch. Like, well, I'm obviously going to call Sick Boy to watch this homemade sex video that I have. You know, like there is a weird bond there for sure.
And I feel like they're kind of in the protagonist syndrome conflict is most of what it is, right? Is like Renton knows I'm the lead of the movie.
Yeah.
But like Sick Boy like that hair is amazing. Like he's handsome. He's like devilishly handsome, and he's doing his Sean Connery and everything else, right? Like there's this weird like subtextual we're fighting for who gets to be the lead until it's clear that no one's going to be the lead, and
and that Sick Boy is a little bit more of a dullard, but the way that Johnny Lee Miller looks in this movie, like with the blonde hair, which you know you had to be around at that time to understand, but just with the face,
that how big that hair bleaching was.
Like literally every young man bleached their hair because of that,
which would turn into tips, bleached tips, and then you'd look like
he becomes green.
You'd look like Dexter Holland, as if that's a cool thing to look like. But the way that he looks in this movie, there's only one way out for the actor, and that is to marry Angelina Jolie, and he did. That's how fucking gorgeous this dude is in this movie. Ewan McGregor's like a handsome guy, I'll say. But Johnny Lee Miller, Jesus Christ.
Sick Boy also, like, again, like the question of whether or not any of these people are friends. For so much of the movie, Sick Boy is like doing this just exegesis on Bond and Bond girls, which I think that's another instance of an adaptation of a book that probably has like chapters where Sick Boy is like literally writing essays,
right,
and then they just turn it into his dialogue in the movie. But the effect is, I think, very much the same, which is like you're not connecting with this person that's just like shouting about Bond at you for what must be months of movie time.
Now, in fairness, though, Sick Boy
is the original
podcaster. Yeah. Thank you.
Nate gets 2 points for that one. I mean, like, if you look at your friend group from any point in your life, you had a Begbie and a Sick Boy and a Spud. We haven't talked about Spud at all, but they were all like 6 through 9 of your friend group. You know, like they were on the bench. This movie doesn't go through the 2 through 5 of your starting lineup. Like that's just not something. There's not the let's all go down to Central Perk and hang out where all 6 of us have equal relationships. It feels like this is all like sort of satellites, and that's what makes, and I'm not like condoning it, but that makes Renton like, oh, Tommy's life got ruined. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter to him.
And it's interesting that you bring up Spud, because he's perhaps the most aptly named character, who basically seems like he is buried under 3 feet of earth and you hardly ever think about, and is just kind of like a goofy, silly guy.
He's a soldier,
but
he's always down for whatever.
But he's also the only person in the entire movie that you could make a case for that like Renton actually feels something for, including Renton himself. I think like the Spud is the only person, like when he realizes, and he's stealing the money at the end, and he realizes that like he has disappointed Spud, that's when he's like, you know what, okay, that was too far.
Spud's look at Mark leaving that hotel room,
one tear
is like as stuck in my face as any baby on the ceiling. And although it's like it's hacky and it's schmaltzy and it's like this movie like being weak or whatever, having the post-credit scene of Spud getting the money in the locker, like hell yeah, please, I'm so glad that happened.
Yeah, that's an interesting kicker, and it really does reinforce like, okay, this is the one guy he found some way to care about. Like,
he's a human.
He doesn't even want to like be better for his parents, but he wants to be better for Spud.
I mean, Spud doesn't wrong anybody but himself, right? Like,
yeah.
unless we want to say that somehow having shit the bed and getting it on other people is a thing he did wrong. Like, he doesn't do anything. He's a puppy.
And he's the one character of the group that doesn't have main character syndrome. And so those are the people that are always around, that you always invite to fill out the party, but never like truly bond with. We have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to grab shopping carts and shopping spree through this movie. The worst possible movie you could ever do a shopping spree for. All right, grab your shopping carts, gentlemen. I cannot believe the board of directors that we have came down from on high and said, this will be our shopping spree movie. I did a random draft order. It is Serpentine, of course. It goes Nate, Ryan, Greg.
Uh-oh.
So, Nate, take all the happiness away from us, I guess, and then Greg and I will sweep up the bullshit.
Okay, I feel like this one's obvious, so I apologize in advance, but Sick Boy has an awesome heroin-concealing storage heeled shoe.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm buying those right away. There's all sorts of things you can keep in there. It doesn't have to be heroin. You can put ribbon candy in there if you wanted.
Yeah, I was going to say,
whatever.
For you, Nate, what's in there? Like your most expensive Pogs? Like,
Yeah, probably they're Alspec in Pog form.
Obviously, there's nothing good about a drug habit, obviously. But if you did have to pick one thing that's kind of cool about a drug habit, you end up with like these cool little compartments and drug areas. Like you have your drug box that you open up and it's full of all your drug stuff in it. I don't know. That part's kind of cool.
Also,
it's also like it's a very James Bondy thing for Sick Boy.
It is.
I was going to say that. Like he's the James Bond fan, and that is if you're a James Bond drug dealer, James Bail Bond, then that is what you're doing.
It was the third time I watched this movie that I was like, wait, they're obsessed with Bond because Sean Connery is Scottish and was Bond. And that's like I can't believe how long it took me to come to that conclusion.
Yes.
But
Russian Marty partner.
Johnny Lee Miller is British. And talked Scottish? Is it like talked as a Scot the entire filming, even offset, and then revealed that he was an actual Englishman at the after party.
If I could just, I'm so sorry.
And he was beaten soundly upon the head and buttocks.
Crack his ass!
Now, only hit his head and buttocks.
He tricked all of us!
He was a donkey. I'm going to take that bag of 16 grand. I thought that was the obvious first round pick.
Big bag of money, 16,000 pounds. Perfect amount of money because they're all like, oh my God, we're all going to get 4,000 pounds.
Yeah.
What? That's not a lot of money, children.
It's $20,000 now.
4,000 pounds then is $20,000 now?
No. 16 is 20,000 now.
That's
so
nothing.
The whole,
what are you doing?
That's what I spend at a grocery store, thanks, Biden.
Oh, inflation. Here we go.
But they do that in the movie where Spud's like, oh, I'm going to do all of this stuff. And even Begbie's like, you fucking daft fool.
Yeah.
Like, this is barely any money whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to kill each other for it if anybody makes a move, but it's almost no money. And still, I want the money.
Man, you put that in an interest-bearing account, man, compounding. Then compounding's your friend, right? Between then and now. Woof,
From 96?
Yeah, you invested in 96. You got that now. Bam!
You could buy Microsoft.
You could buy Microsoft.
Or at least invent it. Greg, what do you got?
Or at least get a couple licenses for Windows. I have to say, is this a thing? I don't know why it would be, but a BB gun with a scope on it?
Shit.
Hell yeah, dude.
You took my second pick.
Man, I'm going to give this thing 5 pumps and just look down the side of this and I'm going up to the book depository, or maybe for this movie, the book suppository. Are you right?
Hey.
Are you right? It all comes out in the end. You know what I'm talking about?
That's how you can tell this movie is the 90s and not 2012 or later, because the dog gets hit in the balls.
Yeah.
The balls.
Immediately bites his owner. I love it.
And not everybody was freaking out, because if it was past 2012, everybody would be like, oh, that doggo, that poor doggo.
Yeah, and for sure, they're like, how are we going to get this dog to react? Think, well, we're really going to shoot it in the nuts. What are you talking about, man?
We're going to hire the Spuds McKenzie and take away his beer. That fucking
I think
dog.
it's Spuds Mackenzie because it's Scotland.
Right. Totally different thing. I will. I'm gonna give that to me.
Ryan.
I have 16 grand, 20 grand now. Greg, what do you got?
Oh yeah, another one for Greg.
A second air rifle.
I am the kind of person who always gets the heebie-jeebies before an interview. It's just a tough situation, right? Best case scenario, you got to go to work on Monday, right? Wouldn't it be nice? You just a little dab will do you of pre-interview speed. You're going to be at your most charming. Your mind's going to be going 1,000,000 miles a minute, right? You're going to do such a good job that you're not going to have to actually work at the job, but you're still going to get to collect unemployment. And isn't that really the important part?
Greg, I have bad news. This interview was for the new spokesperson of Micro Machines. And
Oh, no!
you nailed it, and you got the job.
Oh, man, they're going to pay me in Micro Machines. And I let them think I don't like it.
I loved it in that scene too. Spud's answer to the classic, like, what's one of your weaknesses question is, I'm actually a bit of a perfectionist.
Yeah. But he remembers it after like 10 seconds. He's like, oh, this is what I was supposed. This is on written on my fingers. That is the kind of scene in this movie where it feels like they thought of it beforehand, but I love it.
Yeah,
like, it works.
Yeah.
Give Spud some spotlight time. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna say, just because I throw so many parties and we do so many drugs at these parties, I just want like how like people will have like a train go around the Christmas tree at Christmas.
Sure.
I want a permanently ceiling crawling baby crawling all over my house. Like, where's the baby? Let's go find it.
Baby on the ceiling's the only baby on the ceiling.
Nate, what do you got?
I want. Hey, look. It's no mystery that maybe being citizens of just one country, particularly this one, isn't the best thing to do right now. I want Mark Renton's passport because he leaves that shit in that locker. I'm taking that. I'll be a UK citizen from now on.
That's pretty good. Nate's gonna take that one down. Nate, you have another pick. What do you got?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, look, you got the money. I want those 2 kilograms of heroin because I feel like I can turn it for a better price, honestly.
Third round for heroin. Is that early or late as far as we saw the draft going?
I wondered if it was going to be taken at all.
When they make that deal, and I'm going to you guys because you seem to know the most about illicit drugs, is that like just ready to do, or do we have to cut that? Is it black tar? I don't even know what black tar is. I'm so innocent, guys. Explain this to me.
I'm guessing because of his reaction of doing it that they are going to step on it a little bit. But I don't even know how you even do that with heroin. So
Flour.
Yeah, put a little flour in there.
Yeah. Maybe some powdered sugar.
Maybe throw in a little bit of morphine. Just take the edge off.
Does flour hurt the veins?
I don't know if anything hurts the veins as much as plugging those needles into them.
All right. Nate's got the heroin, so I probably will unplug my ceiling baby and bring it to his house. I am going to take, I have no choice, but I'm going to take the worst toilet in Scotland, and it's because I did read that it is all chocolate, and it was actually luxurious for Ewan McGregor to put his head down there. So that's going to be the party. We're just going to be licking off that thing.
Luxurious.
Yeah.
It's like a chocolate fountain.
Fun doo-doo. Greg, I believe it's called.
Oh, dear.
And that's mine, so don't try to take it.
Is it to me, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
I would love a
I
night
was waiting for Mike to tell you.
at Club Volcano. You know it's all going to erupt at Club Volcano. What I like about Club Volcano, little shitty hole-in-the-wall club, but, man, they capture accurately the feeling that no matter like how shitty the club is, when you're there, you're locked in. You're ready to dance. You're ready to. And also, they do a thing. It bothers me so much in movies when two people be in a club, and the soundtrack will be kind of loud, but then when they talk at a normal volume. In this, they really capture the way you got to talk in the club, which is you have to scream at the absolute top of your lungs to have a normal conversation. Why are we doing this? Why are we sitting here screaming at each other?
And you are
Plus,
now... Go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
Oh, plus they've got really nice Clockwork Orange milk bar appointments on the walls. Yeah.
Did you know what movie we watched before we filmed this movie? If not, here's a bar to show it off. So you are the owner of Club Volcano?
No, I'm just going there for a night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just a coupon for the experience.
They're like 26 in this, right? Because like there's this time in your life where you're like, even if I wanted to go to a club, I can't. Like, I'm 43 years old. I can't go to a club. I can't show up there. Like, that's going to be such a downer for everybody else there, you know? The bouncer's going to look at me and be like, why?
Who are you here to pick up?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll be like, oh, my daughter. But if I were 26 and wearing that belly shirt that Ewan McGregor's wearing and, you know, doing the real, like, speedy-looking dancing, I think that would be nice. So I'm going to say just a night at the club.
To experience.
I
do think that if you wore that Ewan belly shirt, you could pull some ass.
I honestly, the way my gut would hang out under it would be very ostentatious. Like, you know, like people would be like, that's the kind of confidence that shows. It shouldn't be working for me, but it is. Like, I really do think I could pull that off.
Only the greatest kings in the land will demonstrate.
Yeah, right?
I mean, like, it's a great scene, too, because he goes up to 8... he decides now it's time for Mark Renton to have sex.
Yeah,
and
so he's going to boomhauer.
He goes up to 8 girls, and they're all like, immediately, you are disgusting.
Yeah.
And then sees a 15-year-old girl in the corner. I am going to give that point to Greg because I cannot give heroin a point, Nate. I apologize.
Come on, Nate.
Dang
Good
it.
Lord.
Greg, your final pick.
Okay. This one... I've never been more serious. When they're doing the drug deal, Spud is wearing the most beautiful sunglasses I've ever seen in my life. They're like kind of like square shape. They've got this really nice turtle shell frame. The frames are big and kind of like squared off. The lenses are like this subtle yellow.
Does he look like my daughter?
He looks just like your daughter if those glasses were square. They really are a fetching pair of glasses, and I would love them.
And like you could go through Spud's whole mentality of like, well, drug deal, I gotta grab one accessory.
Yeah.
To like really pull this off.
He's the least comfortable looking of all the people at the drug deal. He clearly forgets how to even stand. He's like kind of trying to lean against a wall. But he's got his legs all weird. He's just like, he's freaked out.
They asked him a question about the drugs, and he's like, I'm a perfectionist. My turn, and I am going to go with Every Time I Run, which is rare. Lust for Life starts playing.
Come on, creaky ankles.
Choose doctors.
You're going to bust that ass.
Choose better medical insurance. All right, Nate, last pick. What do you got?
My last pick. I want the magical black cab that appears multiple times in this movie. Seems to have the same cabbie. Always takes people where they need to go to move the plot forward. I want that. I just want a car to show up, and the guy's like, you getting in or not?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Okay, let's
that
go.
moment where Kelly McDonald chews him out, and it's just like, do you find this works? But then she gets in the cab, and she's like, are you coming or not? Yeah.
Ugh. Okay. That's Nate. That cab, that's a legendary cab.
Also, it saves his life later, right?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, more Trainspotting. Outside of the occasional sick boy or Renton mini speech, we don't really learn too much about the environment they're growing up in. We don't have newsreels or protests or topical conversations. So what does Danny Boyle want us to know about 1980s Scotland?
I think mostly that for its inhabitants, it was viewed as kind of like a cultural, if not economic, wasteland. That it was a gray, depressing environment, and that like it almost had like it captured its inhabitants more than anything else. I mean, I don't recognize the Edinburgh that this movie depicts, because I think of that as one of the all-time like classic cities, beautiful cities. I think of Scotland as an amazing country, as like a cultural center, and as like a place of beautiful nature,
full of those green mountains that we saw for like 10 seconds.
That like we get in one shot, and then moves on. And then I think of its like rich history in opposing the English, and then as Renton says, obviously, or Sick Boy says, like being captured by, but like I don't know. I think they hate Scotland in a way that you have to be from Scotland to actually feel.
But don't shit talk Scotland to them. Like that's only for them to say.
Yeah, because they're on the inside.
Right. It's very much the classic like your home. All of Scotland is the hometown that you can't wait to leave. You don't know where you want to go, but you just can't stay there.
Yeah.
But it's also almost Catholic limbo. Like it's left, because even when they're out on the moors and it's like green, it's not a particularly sunny day. Like we're not getting like a bright blue sky. But the moment that Mark goes to London and starts doing realty, like it's beautiful. Like the sun is out, gawky British people are running around in funny costumes. There's a whole thing, right? That,
which is not really London's reputation, but the movie makes it just seem so much brighter than Scotland. Yeah.
London is Disneyland compared to Scotland, and where it's just like a total simulacrum.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they live in Scotland, and then when he goes to England, it's like as a tourist, really, even though he's going to work there, and so you see it that in that sort of like touristy lens.
And I love the fact that even though that Renton moved to a big town, he's still from a small town. So it takes his friends no time to find him. Like, we'll figure it out, dude, and we'll know where you are, and we'll all be living in the same dirty sock foot-filled bed in no time.
I wonder how much of it is like a function of time, though, also. Like, I maybe it did feel more like a kind of a dead end in the late 80s. Because what year is this movie actually set in? It's not quite clear.
I've only read late 80s.
Yeah, right. So it's like kind of sometime in the late 80s. And so maybe that feeling about Scotland changes. I will tell you, I think one of the things that happens is the Scottish like arts movement becomes so big that suddenly it's got like a different feel to it. It doesn't feel like this roughneck place anymore. It feels like kind of a cultural light in the wilderness.
But yeah, that's all us hearing those stories, though. So like we're painting a picture of Scotland that we think based on the culture that's coming out, and then this feels like no. This is the culture. Like this is what it's actually like. And I really appreciate that the movie, if this movie was made 10 years earlier, it would have showed the people across not the pond, because that would be us, but like across the lake, the rich kids, and how they're against them. And it doesn't. It just focuses on them alone. And the richest that we get are their home-owning parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of the consequence. Because if it is the 80s, right, you're dealing with like it's Thatcher era prime minister, it's austerity,
yeah.
It's all these, it's basically, the lines about colonization during the scene when they're out in nature are doing a lot of lifting for everything that we're supposed to feel about what's going on. It's like, no, this is all bad because we are actually, like, we're being held down, even if it doesn't look like it through our parents. Like, everything is just, there's this pressure pushing in.
I do feel like also, though, it's a way of showing that they're little pieces of shit that nothing is ever good enough for. That, like, they are just, they reject everything. So they reject a place that is magical and wonderful. Because there are like shitty little podunk parts of Scotland. They don't come from one. No, that's like they come from the really nice, cool part of it.
But like, I mean, like Danny Boyle is of this generation, if not like maybe 5-6 years older. So like, and that brings you a little bit of perspective. But still, like, you would defend that generation more than you would any other one. And I do think he's putting two sides here of like, we are fucked and we're fucking ourselves all at the same time.
Yeah, well, because I mean, the we are fucked mentality is self-fulfilling, right? To an extent, right? Like if you're going to a punk with nothing to actually resist other than just growing up, then there's nothing to fight back against, right? Which is why it's important that they don't, like you said, they don't bother to show the rich kids. They don't show any sort of conflict. There's not a class thing happening.
Right.
It's just that they can frame it that way because, well, yeah, you're not doing anything with your life, and by choice, and you need excuses for that. So you're going to blame the place you're at, right?
None of these kids are Rosa Parks. None of these kids are in that movie No, where like we're fighting up against like South American fascism.
Yeah.
Like they are just saying like, wow, fuck it, do heroin then.
I mean, they're like have this soft rebellion against capitalism that like because of capitalism they see a future that they can have that's like safe and comfortable, but it is a type of spiritual death. And so they reject that, but then their act of rebellion is like an act of self-destruction because there's not a really constructive way to rebel against capitalism because it's like in the air we breathe and the water that we drink. And they're not interested in like unplugging and going and living in the wilderness and like fending for themselves. That's not part of what they want to do either. They really they want the luxury of capitalism, but then also being like, but I'm not going to try to play this game.
But, oh God, the wilderness, just like kill one bear per day. Like that would be so hard.
Yeah.
They have an air rifle. That's not going to do it.
I mean, they got some like rivers full of like big old salmon in Scotland. I think you want to like roll up next to one of those rivers and see if you can't get.
Not for nothing. I think you could kill a bear with heroin too, pretty easily.
Not cocaine though. I saw a movie about that. It just gets the bears so fired up, man.
The problem with heroin bear is that it's only suppository, so like you really have to trick that bear into looking the other way.
If you gave a bear heroin, get ready to snuggle, friend. That's going to be so awesome. Like a completely out of it bear, and you just like got its arm around you. That's nice.
It's hibernation season.
We could
all
make
the
a Grizzly
time.
Man sequel that ends better.
I don't know.
Where Werner Herzog actually shows us the tape and that guy getting mauled.
Yeah, he just so gently shows the wife the tape, and it's just snuggling noises. Like he didn't want to show her because she'll get so jealous about how snuggled they got.
The bear's really locked in here.
They love hugging. Guys, that's speed round time. Here we go. Answer fast. Why do sick boys speak in essays? Is this a part of adaptation that just doesn't quite work?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a self-indulgent move. Like you have the thing already written, why not have him say it? But I do think it kind of works on the level of just like this guy's not connecting with the people around him. We've all had that friend that like will self-describe their own speaking pattern sometimes as like giving a speech. And that is totally sick boy. Speechifying for his friends.
Greg and I are talking about each other right now.
Yeah, we're both
so
nodding vigorously, staring each other's eyes.
Can you believe this movie did not get released in America with subtitles?
There were subtitles in part of the movie.
And that's why it didn't. Is that there's this joke of, what are you boys talking about? Football. What are you girls talking about? Shopping?
Shopping.
And if they put subtitles in the movie, it would ruin the joke. So they did not. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that some of the slang is impenetrable in some parts, but it's not as bad as I have heard. Reading this book is very difficult because it's written in straight vernacular, and I've never even tried it for that reason.
This is a book where like I meant to read it all my life, but like unless a professor is demanding me to, I'm just not going to pick it up.
I heard the sequel's called Porno, and I have to say that put the whole thing kind of a different light.
Yeah.
I'd read about that.
Was a character ever better named than Spud?
No. Never.
Do you know why my group of friends sucks? And Nate, I don't know about your high school 20s, but like we didn't have a nicknamed person. I assume that his birth name was not Spud. Like, did you have a guy, Nate, that you hung out with that had a crazy name like Chip or Dolphin?
No, nobody that had like a fun name. Like we had a guy named Murph, but whose last name wasn't Murphy, it was Murray, but we called him Murph anyway.
I think that counts. I think that Spud's name is Spudrick, and this is like a half name. Ewan McGregor dieted in order to lose weight to play a junkie. Wouldn't using heroin have been better than dieting?
Do you lose weight on heroin? Because the primary function of heroin in this movie seems to be to make people go horizontal.
Yeah.
Like as soon as that stuff hits you, you just go out. And remember, was Once Upon a Time in America where he smokes opium?
Yeah.
It's hard watching somebody do these drugs and seeing what the kick is because it looks like you just lie there for 8 hours. Like I already could do that.
I've heard it's better than any fucking cock in the world. I don't know what that means to you.
I'm quite attached to one, so I'm gonna stick with that one.
This next question just says Kelly MacDonald age and Trainspotting Kelly MacDonald legal ? How old Kelly MacDonald Trainspotting how to clear search history. This was sent from our home offices in Des Moines. Any of you have this problem?
I think that was supposed to get erased. I would just like to say for the record, I was only 15 when this movie came out.
She was 19 when it was filmed.
She was 19, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And but it's such a 90s cliche to be like, sex scene, and then, you're underage, record scratch. Like,
Mother Superior is named that as a reference to Happiness is a Warm Gun, the Beatles song. Do we think that song's name is a typo and it's actually Happiness is a Warm Gun? Happiness?
given how John Lennon ended, I hope so.
You know, that is such a prescient song, really. Like, that's them looking at their culture and being like, it's very violent. And
guys, 50 years from now, it's going to get crazy. But I think the song was about heroin. So that's why it was used in this movie.
Oh, is that true?
I think so. Yeah.
One thing that this movie, I think, points out is that we have a story about heroin, and it's from movies and stuff, where, like, if you do heroin, you enjoy it for a little bit, and then it completely destroys your life, and you can always see who the junkies are. I think the truth of a lot of drugs, heroin 100% included, is that people have bad heroin habits, and we see them every day, and we don't realize how many. So I think, and this movie establishes that, because halfway through it, you're like, oh, okay, I see. All their lives are falling apart because of heroin, and that's all this is going to be about. But honestly, they like kind of still do heroin, kind of like still live, you know?
You brought up Boogie Nights earlier, and I do think that in any movie, and again, we're not condoning heroin, but once the heroin needle hits your arm in any movie, that's 70s turning to 80s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nights. And I guarantee you everyone listening to this knows somebody who does heroin every once in a while, and judge them. And
we don't like, but what's interesting though is like we don't have stories about that.
Right.
You know, there's only one arc for drug use still. Like, we are the just say no culture. We're the choose life culture, right? And so the story is either, yeah, drugs are fun, but they will kill you, or you never do drugs ever. Instead of this weird thing where, like, you know, he says about his own mom, right? Like, I took Valium from her because she's a drug addict, but she is like a conventional drug addict, because if it's pills, then it's kind of okay, right?
I cannot believe that there was no like hat on a hat or a lantern on that line. Like, that was like such a line of the movie that, like, we're all fucking addicts, but he just barely mentions that his mom's on some opium as well, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, and Francis is a violence addict, right? Like, I mean, he needs that hit of violence all the time, and so it doesn't even have to be like a drug.
And Tommy, before his heroin, he's a curly blonde hair addict.
But he's addicted.
Well, and he loved all 100 goals. That's too many goals.
He's addicted to love.
One
and
at a
sex.
time.
Man, he should have. I feel like he should have been able to put it together.
Yeah.
Right? He's watching the soccer goals videos. He's just not a man of the mind.
Right.
But, like, if he just thinks, where have I seen the soccer video?
And if you want to get 90s as fuck, watching Tommy and his girlfriend stand outside of a video store.
Oh, my God.
Before it opens, waiting to see if they have the sex tape. Tommy, it's your fucking friends, you piece of shit. You have the worst friends. They gave you catworm disease. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, let's give this movie awards. All right, gentlemen, it is time for awards. Danny Boyle would go on to, I think, win and be nominated for a ton of Oscars. Trainspotting was not it in 96 because we had the, I don't know, English patient or something?
The English patient, yeah, Best Picture.
Who I'm going to say as a person, is not in our Sweet 16. Let's start with recommendations. My recommendation is T2, the Trainspotting sequel. Greg, what do you got?
I'm going to go with a little movie called T2, the train. I think its actual name is T2 Trainspotting. I don't know why they did this.
They think they're funny, honestly.
Yeah. It's kind of a funny joke because of how unfunny it is. Like, it's almost funny, and then it's like, wow, they really did it, so then it becomes kind of funnier. It is all of them, like, 30 years later, 20 years later. And...
Is Kelly MacDonald in it?
Yeah, she is in it too. They go. She plays a lawyer, and so that character turns out just fine. Also, you think Ewan McGregor looks good all those years later, and then you see Kelly MacDonald, and you're like, "Damn, she wins."
Yeah.
It's redemptive of so many of the characters. It doesn't try to recapture anything from the first movie. It doesn't try to spend too much time commenting on the first movie. It engages with the first movie in a mature and interesting way. It is a great companion piece to the movie, and in fact it changes in a positive way some of how I look at the first movie. There is one funny moment where Rent Boy starts, like, as a 40-year-old man now, starts kind of getting into, like, almost, he's doing the choose life monologue. He's trying to explain to a young woman in the movie how they used to talk sometimes, and he starts doing one of the choose life things, and he gets really caught up in it, and he starts doing the whole thing, and the movie suddenly takes on the feeling of Trainspotting, and it's so uncomfortable, and then he drops out of it and it goes away again, and that's like the really only time the movie tries to engage with that. One last thing I'll say on it, Boyle makes up for the way Scotland is portrayed in Trainspotting, and as part of his maturity, they go back into nature. Edinburgh is shot differently. It's like it raises up everything. It shows you Scotland is beautiful. Scotland is a cool place, and I feel like that's the most mature thing you see from the first movie to the second.
Yeah, I will say, if that you grew up with this movie and skipped this because it was just like a cash grab, I don't think it is. I do think it's a really interesting movie. I would not recommend watching T2 first.
No.
Or only. Like, I really do think it speaks a lot to the first one. But yeah.
And, like, Trainspotting's better.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just it's more than I expected. It's more than anybody should have expected it to be.
But the scene that I will absolutely recommend, Greg was sort of alluding to it, is choose life, choose checks, Mucilix, and then that's the cereal that he buys. So,
he wants to be regular.
If we can all be quiet for that.
Ryan.
Okay. Nate, what do you recommend this week?
I'm going to recommend another movie about a group of people who are kind of tangentially connected to each other. They do some drugs, they wander around. The movie kind of organizes itself in a sequence of scenes. You're not really sure what's going to happen to them with the rest of their lives at the end. It's Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused. It's pretty much the same vibe. You don't really know who's friends with anybody because they're not actually really connected, but they all cross paths a bunch, and they have a zany time.
It's so crazy to watch. Like, Trainspotting is so 96 that you would never want to go back to 96. And then we'll get movies in the future that are about the 90s. To watch the difference between Linklater-like movies from the 70s and then Linklater's 70s movie is also so different. Like, how people feel about, like, in the decade sucks that you're in, and the decades before were just fucking dope.
Yeah.
Good call. I thought you were going to say this group of friends who don't deserve to be together, but they are, is the Movie of the Year podcast, and I will recommend that right now on all your podcast catchers.
Honestly, check it out. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Nate, let's go to 90s slang.
All right. This was a little tricky for, because this isn't really a 90s slang movie. It's a Scottish slang movie. Yeah. But I'm going to go with, they use the word wanker a lot, and wanker had a moment in the 90s where there were a bunch of, like, British characters on shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, etc., who, wanker pops up, right? It became like, this is our touch point for 90s Britishness, and it sort of happened for a minute.
And this means pulling your pud?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. It's the person who's doing it.
Right. You are a masturbator.
You are the kind of person who I think masturbates, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Devastating.
I think you might be having a wank.
Greg, what do you got?
Gosh, there's so much to choose from. But I'm going to go with gear. Calling the drugs gear is something that I didn't hear before this movie, and I still now hear people call, specifically I feel like I hear people call steroids gear. Like, oh, that guy's geared up or he's on gear. But I think it's a cool little bit of slang. Honorable mention has to go with the rhyming slang. Francis at one point says, "Let's go get something to eat. I'm Lee Marvin," because he's starving. Love a good rhyming slang.
That's good.
That reminds me of Don Cheadle in Ocean's 11. Well, where he's like, it's Barney because like it went kablarney. Like, we don't know what you're saying, you British.
Yeah, though an important thing about rhyming slang is it's usually pretty much understood what words are being used. Like, you don't just make it up off the top of the dome. I think you use like pre-established.
There's a cipher.
Yeah.
We're going with Wanker because Nate, as everyone knows, is my masturbation coach, and he's been there through all my hard years.
You're doing really
wanker.
great too.
Thank you.
You really slowed down, and I think that's important.
Well, I can't pump
You're
as
not a
fast
young
as I
man
used to.
anymore, right?
Greg,
Yes.
2 top-selling soundtracks, and yet the music moment of the movie is what?
I'm such a stupid sucker. There's so many good moments in this, but he's at the club. A song is playing. He sees Kelly MacDonald, and at that very moment, the song changes. The energy to the whole scene changes. That moment where he sees her, I love that kind of thing. That is what it's like. That's what the Thunderbolt is like. The music changes. The whole soundtrack changes.
The song is called Changes. He's waiting for her changes to go through puberty. So, yeah, it makes sense. Nate, what do we got?
I mean, I'll go for the obvious, like, Lust for Life. They're running through the streets. It's clearly like a Beatles Hard Day's Night reference that we're getting in tandem with this just rolling out of the whole thing, right? Like, it's such a strong start to any movie to be like, hey, you recognize this song? It's amping you up. You automatically are kind of into everything that's happening, and now some guys are running at you, and you don't even know why.
It's got to be Nate. Like, the Beatles stuff is something that I did not know about all the times I've watched this movie, but the Sgt. Pepper cover references, the Abbey Road, like, we're not going to walk across the street unless we're doing a Beatles cover. It's so here. And like the Beatles for them is like what Red Hot Chili Peppers for us. So like it's very important to them. Nate takes that.
Beatles classically wankers.
They are. They probably fucking jerk off. Let's go with cringiest moment, Nate. What do we got?
Also in the club, in the background, Frances Begbie is reaching into a woman's top and like just groping her from over top while Mark is like trying to go score. And that was just like among the many cringy things that character does. It was just such a like, yeah, man, I'm in there. I'm just grabbing tit. Like, just gross.
If they were texting, text Begbie, and he's like, yeah, I'm just grabbing tit right now. That part was supposed to be played by David Eccleston, the Doctor Who guy.
Really? I could see that.
And that's who Boyle...
The Doctor Who guy, the doctor that wore a leather jacket.
Ah.
Yeah.
Trench coat? Or
he was a grumpy doctor.
at the waist?
I think it was just a waist. Yeah.
But he said no, and so they went from like a 6'4" guy to a 5'4" guy. And Begbie or Robert Carlyle said, "I'm too short for this." And Danny Boyle was like, "You don't understand how much scarier short guys are if they're psychopaths than tall guys."
Oh yeah, that's the Joe Pesci thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Eccleston was in Shallow Grave, right?
Yes, he was one of the three, and not the holdovers. What's the HBO show about the people who went away?
The Leftovers?
The Leftovers, thank you.
Tom Perrotta's Leftovers.
Greg, cringiest moment.
Wow. A movie that really embraces the power of cringe. But I'm going to go with Tommy is at the height of his life, the best parts of his life. He is making love to his girlfriend, and she says, "Let's throw on that tape we made of the two of us having sex." And from that point forward, Tommy's life absolutely falls apart. That they're so happy, and then when they can't find the tape, she's so upset. And to go from like having nice sex to like she's screaming and upset, that's too much. That's very tough for Greg to take.
We'll give it that. We've already talked about the scene a lot, but Renton and Sick Boy on the couch, they're not even like hooting and hollering.
No,
like they're just letting this go by. Probably knowing that this guy's life is over.
But and the movie never hits on it, that never touches on it. But they fucking hate Tommy. They hate that he's healthy. They hate that he's not addicted to heroin. They hate that his life is
long-term relationship.
Yeah, and everything is probably going to work out for him. And so, without even deciding to do it, he and really they, because Sick Boy then becomes a part of it, just passively destroy this guy's life. If they could even just admit that they did it or like apologize for it or something, but it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't go. Like they don't even realize they've done it. They will destroy one of their friends' lives without even really realizing that that's what happened.
Well, when they're 27, they will get serious. But they're 26, and did you recognize Tommy as the future star of Rome on HBO?
Oh my gosh, that's who that is.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Really?
Whoa.
That's amazing.
He's the blonde guy from Rome.
He's the blonde guy from Rome.
Oh my gosh. Titus Pullo's little buddy. Wow. What child is that? That's him.
Still fucked up on cat poop, but in Rome now. Okay, so cringiest moment. That's going to go to... I got to go to Nate because Begbie fucking scares the shit out of me. Let's do director's signature moment, Greg. What was the boiliest moment?
For me, the part that was most boiled goose was the Jamiroquai fever room in a movie that never tells us why it's called Trainspotting. Nobody says Trainspotting. Trains are like there, like his room, the wallpaper has trains, so I guess maybe that's part of it. But and then the whole thing of like suddenly Begbie's in bed with him, and then of course it has the world famous stealing baby. That whole scene for me, basically like the surrealness, the horror, and the different like effects are as boiled as it gets.
Is the baby weirder than the time where Mark Renton puts on that big white fur hat and just dances around? Man,
heroin insanity.
No listener knows what we're talking about right now. Like, that is gone.
Kids, look up Jamiroquai. It seems like it's the guy's name, but it's actually the band's name.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, that's a fact.
Yeah, it's just the band's name.
Yeah, the band is Jamiroquai. He's just the lead singer and the only guy they'll put in the videos.
Jamiroquai Johnson was the lead singer. Nate, what is the boiliest moment?
It's really almost every scene in this movie opens and closes on like an extreme close-up moment that then we pull back from, right? Whether it's Mark and Spud drinking a milkshake together very aggressively,
yes, dude.
Or any of these things, right? It's that very like we're doing kind of an edgy. It's not like fisheye. It's not the Dutch angle thing, but it's just saying like, hey, look, this isn't a regular film. I'm not setting the camera up. The camera's moving immediately, and then we'll set it up.
This is something that like became a drug movie thing that I think like most people give Aronofsky credit for in Requiem, where like if you're about to do drugs, you slam everything on the table, quick cut, even if like you're getting in a car to drive, seatbelt, start the car, like everything has to be a close up. But yeah, even the milkshake, which is like the sweetest moment of the movie. Yeah, Nate, you get that one too.
Nate.
All right, Nate, pound for pound performance.
I mean, you described how small Robert Carlyle is, and you got to give it to him. Like every scene he's in, he steals. He is terrifying every time he's on camera. He's noticeable in the background. Like no conversation with him ends well. The final scene in the pub when he stabs the guy in the eye with his broken glass, and you're just like, this. You guys just won. Like, you won the movie. You got all this money, and you can't just shut the fuck up and chill out for a little bit. And he's so convincing about it. I mean, even the way that he, like, so casually tosses the empty pint glass over his shoulder into the club crowd below.
Well, in America,
it's
salt, right? And in Scotland, it's a pint glass. I think that scene is Renton's changing point because he always dealt with Begbie in his pint glasses thrown over the shoulder, and even the guy with the pint glass to the face. But then standing there, like in his whole Begbie mode, he's like, "Mark, bring me a cigarette." Right, like now you're also my bring me a cigarette, and Mark thinks like this fucking sucks. Like this is not a good life. Greg, what do you got?
Because you see, violent authoritarians turn on the people closest to them.
I won't do that to you two, though.
I give him a point for that, though. I think that's important that the listeners hear that gets a point.
Great. I'm gonna go. I'm not a very creative person. This movie 100% relies on Ewan McGregor to take us from beginning to the end, and it's inviting to see Renton as being a one-note character, but that's not actually true. We see him high off his ass. We see him going through withdrawal. We see him like being Captain Business Pants. We see him like deciding to not just steal from his friends, but what he says like a couple scenes before that is, I got to get rid of these guys and I have to figure out how to do it. And that is like part of his stealing is not just to get the money, but is to create this hard break between him and these guys. He can't quit these guys until he has to do it. And Ewan McGregor has the right energy and the right tone for every single scene. So even though he is the main character and it's kind of a bunk answer, I think ultimately he makes the movie what it is.
Honestly, if I was a studio exec and I hated this movie, I'd say, all right, I will fund it and distribute it as long as I get Ewan McGregor for his next movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's how impactful he is. To make us, like, I read that he was supposed to be a combination of Michael Caine, like in handsome Michael Caine days, and Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange, which we obviously get from him. But for him to be this relatable and root forable and be this fucking decrepit is, I think, so, like, it's just star power. That's all you can do. I'm going to give that one to Greg, even with his coward answer.
Cowardice wins again.
We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll see who won at the Trainspotting show. Okay. Guys, Trainspotting, what do we think? Like, is it in the upper echelon of 96 movies?
I say yes. Yeah, I'd say it's in the upper tier. It's in consideration.
Yeah. It's got to be in the top 8. Top 8.
Nate, we have pretty starkly divided them. I mean, I don't even think there's like tiers. There's just 2 tiers, right?
Yeah.
There's not multiple tiers. There's just 2. And this is certainly one of the better of the better tier of movies. Definitely. I would say it's not like a shoe-in or anything like that, but it's got a real chance.
I think the hardest part for me was separating my, early young love of it and can I watch it with new eyes? And honestly, I don't think I did. But the filmmaking is just so in your face, and it's so 96. So if that comes down to what separates a winner from a loser is how much of the part of the year that you were, then I think it's got it. Greg, you had 29 points.
That's not a good score, Ryan.
Nate had 33.
Wow. That's not even that many more points.
So Greg wanted more points, but Nate wanted twice as many more points.
Yeah.
So here's what I suggest. You guys both make me friendship bracelets, and I will wear them all.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
A man can never have too many friendship bracelets.
Or eat enough stew, as we have learned from the podcast hosts of our youth. Nate, thank you so much for being here tonight. Can you tell us where else we can listen to you?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I have a podcast called Debut Buddies that you can find everywhere, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. It's a fortnightly podcast about firsts, and we talk about all kinds of firsts. We're going to talk about the first #1 Pink Floyd album. That's going to be fun. But we also talk about firsts in history, like the first woman elected mayor, which was also really an interesting story.
Do you guys have an episode about the first time that Nate said fortnightly and was so proud of the fact that he said it?
It's just such a fun word, right? Like bi-weekly, like get out of here.
Well, and it's more clear. Like people hear bi-weekly and they're like, so
twice a week? Or...
You say fortnightly and people are like, wow, he's releasing in the video game Fortnite. That's cool.
Yeah.
And Greg, thank you for being here as well.
You know what? I'm always here, Ryan.
Yeah, you're contractually obligated, which I think is what makes your point total so low. For Nate, for Greg, my name is Ryan. Might get back soon. We have so many incredible episodes coming up. Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Heck yeah, Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Is that going to be in the upper elite with these movies?
It's going to be in the upper elite of the movies we get excited about. But no, I don't think it's going to be. I'm glad we're going to do a show about it. But there are, like, even before we engage with the movies, there are sometimes movies that we're like, well, we're doing a show about that. But I think that's going to be much more in the, like, Mars Attacks sphere.
Yikes.
Yeah, sorry.
The only movie from this season that I have not seen. Nate, do you think that Jerry Maguire will be in the upper echelon?
Oh, I would, yeah, probably, right? I mean, come on. Show Jerry Maguire the money, etc.
I'm very interested to see that movie because I liked it a lot when it came out in '96, but I haven't even thought that much about it since then. So is it going to be, oh wow, this is even better? I didn't know how good this was because I was silly, or is it going to be like? Eesh.
It does have Jay Moore, which is something that we've avoided this entire podcast. I'm a little upset about that. But there are so many more 96 movies that we're going to do. For Nate, for Greg, thank you so much for listening. And how do we end this podcast?
Keep watching them movies.
Keep watching them.